I've always wanted to write a whodunit. I like the books by Agatha Christie and people like Ruth Ware, but I also like books like The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith, where you know right away from the start who the bad guy is. And this once I wanted to try to write something different. That meant that I had to have a plot. And God, the amount of trouble that writers get into when they actually try to write a plotted novel, I can't even begin to tell you, but I usually avoid it, but this time I didn't.
Hey everyone, what's going on? Back with a new book review. Before we go into the book review, I must say I am this close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. I have subscribers coming and going, and I just want you to say please stay with me for this. I will put more music reaction videos up, I promise. It is summertime. I can't wait to do more music reaction videos. Please help me get to this 1,000 subscriber mark, and then I will also do a 1,000 subscriber video, and then I will add the details in once I make that video. So please stay tuned to that as well. Today we are diving on into the newest Stephen King novel that is released. Again, I mentioned in my previous video, I took a little kind of pause in my chronological reading. The new book, which is called Never Flinch, because I just couldn't be one of those people to not read this as soon as it came out. Never Flinch is a new release by Stephen King. If you have not gotten it yet, be sure to go check it out. For those who know and don't know, that Never Flinch is a crime novel. Now, when it comes to a crime novel, this is actually a Holly Gibney novel. So Holly Gibney has appeared in multiple stories from Stephen King, and when it's come to Holly Gibney, we know it's going to be a crime novel with probably little to very non-supernatural elements, which I'm bummed about that. First off, let's say, because I love when Stephen King writes about supernatural. They are my favorite trope. It is a very peculiar read to me personally, because there are different types of elements going through it, and there are different stories within a story, if you want to say. Without further ado, let's jump right on into it. We talk about Holly Gibney, who is the investigator, or whatever you want to say, crime detective of Finders Keepers. She is the sole proprietor of it. We are going to focus on 3 types of stories in this. Let's start with first. Now, as Stephen King mentioned as my little snippet in the beginning of this video, Stephen King wanted to create a villain right out of the get-go and let the readers know who that villain is. So that's why I found that it's kind of interesting when he talked about that a little bit. Creating a novel and creating a book that has a plot solely created personally, specifically a plot that just he has to sit down and he has to write out, obviously draft after draft. So I can imagine a little bit about that as I am also writing my 3rd novel. But as we dive on into Never Flinch, the first part we are going to talk about is the actual villain, who is named Trig, or Bill Wilson as he puts himself. On the back of the book, it shows actually what was written in the story. Trig, or Bill Wilson, writes this letter and obviously gives it to, or mails it to, the detectives. So he says that if something is not done, that these people will be killed. So I'm just gonna read the back of this. This is not obviously giving anything away. There's no spoilers on my channel like always, but I want you to know what Trig has wrote and what the villain that Stephen King has created is, starting right from the get-go. So we know who he is, we know what his intentions are. So here it was what it says. I believe the innocent should be punished for the needless death of an innocent. Should those who caused that death be put to death themselves? I think not, because then they would be gone and the suffering for what they did would be at an end. This is true even if they acted with the best will in the world. They need to think about what they did. They need to rue the day. Does that make sense to you? It does to me, and that is enough. I will kill 13 innocents and 1 guilty. Those who caused the innocent to die will therefore suffer. This is an act of an atonement. Bill Wilson. So Holly is working with a close friend who is actually a detective named Izzy Janes on this case, and they are trying to obviously find out who this serial killer is and to dig up the clues that they need to find this person. While on the opposite side, Trig is doing his little things throughout the story to prove his point and to prove what he wrote in that letter to the detectives. So as Trig is going on a little killing spree, we have obviously Izzy and Holly working together trying to figure things out. So the second part of this story is we kind of actually deal with another antagonist. Now this antagonist is actually, before before I talk about the antagonist, Stephen King has actually made this book not only kind of political, which again, we'll get to that in a second, not my favorite, but not only is it political, it's very high and important on feminism. So there's this man named Chris, but then he also goes by Chrissy. Stephen King dives on into the details of Chris's personality with this, and obviously how he plays a part into the whole plot of the story. So I wanted to mention that person as well, just because it is playing a little part with not only Trig, but also playing on the other parts I'm going to mention throughout this video. So we are already diving into a lot of things with Never Flinch. So we have a serial killer, we have a man who thinks he's a woman, vice versa, however you want to say that. You have Holly and Izzy trying to crack the case of this serial killer. And then we are going to dive on into, very shortly, I mind you with this video, the political side of this. So as multiple things are happening in different settings, we go into a political part of the story with a woman named Kate McKay. So Kate McKay is a dedicated activist for women's rights, and she is religiously trying to prove her point with all the people and all the politics that are out there, and trying to discuss her point on why women should have certain things and the rights that should be happening. The big political part of this story is the Kate McKay part of it, and again, this isn't my favorite part, just mainly because politics are not my go-to. The way with Kate McKay, as you know, with politics, they need bodyguards or security. So Kate McKay in the story, Stephen King gives her a bodyguard, and who do you think the bodyguard is? None other than Holly Gibney. So not only does Holly Gibney have to worry about this Bill Wilson guy, she also has to obviously now focus on being the bodyguard for a very big activist who is basically has a big target on her back for people who are not feminists or activists for trying to promote and obviously get the word out there. Now, Kate has not only a bodyguard with Holly Gibney, but she also has kind of like this, like, I don't know if you want to call it like a secretary or like a person that goes with her named Corey. Now, Corey is this person that Kate McKay hired, just going around with Kate with her activists and her speeches and her meetings and all that stuff. Also planning the events and where they are going to go for the next speech or the next rally that she's going to be at. Just to break down what we've discussed so far, very simple. 1, Trig, or Bill Wilson. He is a serial killer. He's out there on the loose. 2, Holly Gibney. It's a Holly Gibney story. She's also working with Izzy, who's obviously a detective, trying to figure out this Bill Wilson case. Now, Holly is also being a bodyguard for Kate McVeigh, who is an activist for women's rights. And Corey is the woman who works with Kate. Also, I don't want to forget the other antagonist, Chris, and this is a big part of it too, because obviously with 2 antagonists being in the book and they're doing their own separate things, there is going to be a little tie with the plot. As Stephen King mentioned, he is not very good and probably is not his favorite for writing scheduled plots, but he did a really good job with this book. I did enjoy the double antagonist part. Again, I'm a dedicated King fan and just basically reader who loves an author that actually dives on in and creates characters that are ones that you can actually feel for, and where you can just imagine from these characters' actions and where they go throughout the story and what happens to them in the end. With all this coming together, I do give this only 4 stars. Now, with it only being 4 stars, again, I don't want to have to go back into the political part of this, but the politics part is not my go-to. Any political view, theme, or whatever Stephen King has politic-wise is not something I can really relate to, because again, I honestly don't vote, I don't follow the news, I don't do none of that crap. Stephen King growing up, reading the newspaper, watching news, following politics, that's his go-to. He puts it in his books. I have to respect it, but I just can't follow it. Now, the pace of this book is actually pretty good. It does, again, bounce around because there are so many different things happening in Never Flinch. But with Never Flinch, now, if you are not a Holly Gibney fan, which there are many of those out there, and I'm not saying that you should be a Holly Gibney fan, but again, you have to read the other books. If this is your first Holly Gibney book you've read and you're not feeling it, again, you have to go back and see the other ones too. I've shown the graphic in this video. If you go back, you obviously have to start with the Bill Hodges series. That is where Holly Gibney is introduced. And it's not that I don't like Holly, don't get me wrong. I do love the crime part where Stephen King does in his books, but I really miss his supernatural books. Salem's Lot being my all-time favorite Stephen King book to this day. Nothing has topped it, and I don't feel like anything's gonna top it yet. I hope Stephen King writes until he's like, and I hope he lives till he's like 100 something, because I want more Stephen King books to add to my shelf, and I want more to add to the collection of just being an all-time Stephen King fan, being my favorite author. Wasn't my favorite Holly Gibney book, and it wasn't my favorite Stephen King book, but nevertheless, it is another Stephen King book to add to the shelf. And now I can go back and move on into the books that I'm reading chronological order, which I am actually on his nonfiction book, Danse Macabre. Like I mentioned, it's a nonfiction book of Stephen King talking about just the aspect of horror, the theme of it, and not only books, but movies as well. Some of his childhood memories of what horror meant to him and what it means to him to be a horror writer, and just a lot of good stuff in it. I've read this once. I'm not that far in it right now, but I can't wait to finish this. I can't wait to talk about it for my next book review. So please stay tuned for that as well. All right, everyone, that is it. Thank you for stopping by. Again, I thank you all for following my channel. Those out there, if you have not, please, yes, subscribe, comment, like, whatever, you know the drill. Please spread the word out there too of your friends and family who love, again, horror, Stephen King, music reaction videos, all of it. I have books and videos on this channel because those are my two passions. So again, thank you all very much. And like I always say, my friends and subscribers, please read your book cover to cover. We'll see y'all later.